Welcome to Backpack Battles, patch 1.0.3, patch analysis. Without further ado, let's dive right in. Hi everyone. We like how things have been developing, so we will continue where we left off last week. For Mage, crafted spells and chess still need some more love. I agree with that. Power-wise, Adventure seems to be well integrated with the other classes. Our aim is to now get all subclasses into action. Have fun, everyone. Alright, we scroll down, we got balancing and neutral. Mana Orb, the buffs that it gives when it pops go down from 25 to 20, so a little bit of nerf to Mana Orb. Stone Helm, stun resistance goes from 30% to 40%. A huge nerf to the lucky hammer dagger build. Just Stone Helm adding some counters to the game, which is good. For Ranger, we got Acorn Collar, cost going from 6G to 7G, so slight nerf on Acorn Collar. A little bit more expensive. Lucky Piggy. Chance increase goes from 15% to 12%. Let's check out Lucky Piggy. Lucky Piggy, the chance-based effects of the star items. So you see it's got a star on his little head and a star on his little nose. Those items make the chance based effects 12% more likely to trigger rather than 15. So pretty big nerf also to the, I believe that's part of the Mega Clover Hammer Dagger build, so another nerf there. Snowmaster, cooldown from 3.8 seconds to 3.3 seconds, so a buff to Snowmaster. Let's look at it again. I think that's the second buff in a row as well. I believe in the last patch, they buffed it as well. It's not Snowmaster, that's Wonky Snowman. Snowcake, Snowmaster, here we go. Every 3.3 seconds, inflict 1 cold. If your opponent has at least 10 cold, gain 1 in power instead. Cleanse 1 debuff. Pretty good, honestly. What do you need? A carrot, you need a snowball, and you need a lump of coal to make it. And then the items trigger 10% faster for each. Oh, triggers 10% faster for each cold item around it, and it's got a bunch of stars around its butt. So, interesting. I would build it. I would build it. The second buff in a row. It was buffed in the last patch as well. What else do we have here? That's all for the Ranger changes. So a few Ranger changes to kind of recap. Mostly nerfs to Mega Clover, and then a buff to Snowmaster. And that's about it. Berserker, spiked wall. Spike maximum goes from 6 to 8. So let's take a look at this. Items. Spiked. This needed to happen, I think. Base stamina regeneration minus 30%. It's a pretty huge downside to this item. Like, a lot of the builds that I go on Berserker, you need a ton of stam. So just nerfing my stamina regen by 30 is not very appealing. But your battle rage lasts 2% longer. Return damage limit of spikes against melee and range attack plus 30%, so your spikes do 30% more damage. On attack, 30% chance to prevent 12 damage, remove 0.3 stamina from opponent, and gain 2 spikes up to 8. So usually up to 6 was the limit, now it's up to 8, which is good. I mean, you want to generate spikes with this. It's all part of a spike build because of that stam nerf, so getting more spikes is pretty good. I wish you could click that in that menu, but you can't. You got to be on the main screen, so I'll put a little suggestion for the devs here. Extra angry. Delay goes from 4 seconds to 3.5 seconds. So let's look at extra angry. Okay, extra angry. Battle rage ended after 3.5 seconds. Enter battle rage for 70% of the duration once. So your battle rage is over, you wait 3.5 seconds, and then you go into a second battle rage for 70% of how long it was. I'm not in love with it. It's not the... It's usually like you look at the games, and most of the time after your battle rage is over, either they've scaled to infinity, like the fight's over. It's kind of a win more button, and I don't think the second battle rage is going to really change anything. So I'm not in love with this item. But slight buff there, so. Dragon set cooldown goes from 1.2 seconds to 1.1 second. Let's take a look here. All right, let's take a look at dragon set here. All right, so every 1.1 seconds during battle rage, you gain 1 heat. So this is triggering pretty awesome and pretty fast. You could even put it on like a Goobert or something, so pretty good. One caveat is the bag. You need the forge hammer to make this dragon stuff, so you get the lifesteal bonus. Do you need all of them? You probably need all of them. Interesting. Okay. Yeah, pretty good, pretty good. And a slight buff there. Let's see. Cheese Goobert. Maximum health you get when it procs goes from 20 to 22, so buff to Cheese Goobert. Cheese. 5 item activations gain 22 maximum health and 2 random buffs. I think it's one of the better Gooberts, honestly. Let's look at all these other Gooberts. Goob. 5 item activations. It's pretty nice. You're comparing it to Cupcake. Heal for 12, gain 2 buffs of type of which you have the most. 6 item activations, gain 3 luck. You have at least 5 luck, gain 3 regen instead. Or the poison one. 5 item activations, heal 9, inflict 4. Honestly, pretty strong. Pretty strong Goobert with the cheese Goobert, so. And it even got a slight buff, so definitely should see some more play. Now we move on to Reaper. Actually, let's go back. Berserker. So Berserker got slight buffs to pretty much everything. And now we go on to Reaper. We look at the Staff of Unhealing. And let's see what this is. Staff of Unhealing, the heal goes from 22 to 25. So let's take a look here. Staff of Unhealing. Every 2 seconds heal for 25. So that's a buff there. Use 5 mana. For 2 seconds, deal 100% of your healing as damage. So a little buff to Staff of Unhealing. And no other changes, so they must be pretty happy with where Reaper is. Now we scroll down to Mage. We got a lot of Mage changes, so let's dive in. Magic for Dummies. Maximum health per spell goes up 2 to 3. Okay, so let's just open this and see. It's a buff. We've got spells. So they really keep in mind they're going for... They want to buff the crafted spells, which are kind of terrible, so it makes sense. So Magic for Dummies. Every 5 seconds, use 1 mana, gain 6 maximum health plus 3 for each spell, and crafted spells count twice. If you've got a crafted spell on any of these stars, you're going to get an additional 6 health, which is considerable. I mean, that's almost as much as just the proc itself. So, interesting change, and a good way to indirectly buff crafted spells. So you're not buffing crafted spells directly. You're saying, hey, this is an item that interacts with crafted spells, and you're buffing the outcome there, which is an interesting way to go about it. Null Blade cooldown goes from 1.6 seconds to 1.7. Buffs removed go from 2 to 3, and damage increase goes from 1 to 2. So slight nerf on the cooldown, but a buff to the amount of buffs it removes, and its damage is doubled, which is a crazy. I already thought it was a good item. I never built it, but I thought it was a good item. So, pretty big change there. Lanternberry cooldown goes from 4.5 seconds to 4.2 seconds, and the cleanse goes up from 2 to 3. I thought Lanternberry was one of the better mage items. Let's see. Yeah, I like Lanternberry. So 15% chance to protect your buffs from removal, so it's guarding your buffs, and then it's also cleansing debuffs. If you have no debuffs, you're gaining luck and regen. I think it's really strong, and now it's even faster. So the buildup is kind of cancer. Look at this here. So you need spell, scroll, regrowth. I guess it's not that bad. You just need these 2 spells, right? Regrowth and Blessing of Purity. So not that bad. Not that bad of a build-up, and it's buffed now. Ice Flower Chance goes down. So it was a 30% chance, and now it's a 25% chance. The cold goes up 2 to 3, and the block goes up 10 to 13. So let's see. Star Weapon attacks, 15% chance to use 1 mana to inflict 3 cold. Armor Shield activates, chance to gain 1 mana and 13 armor. So 50% chance to gain 1 mana and 13 armor. So a little bit less likely to proc on the weapon side. So the stars up here are a little bit weaker, even though the cold is higher. And it just gives more armor. So if your armor shield activates, so it's a better defensive item and a little bit worse attacker item, which is interesting. Devouring Sphere cooldown goes from 4 seconds to 3.7 seconds. Now has a vampiric item type. That's good. It's kind of intuitive that it was vampiric, but let's see. Devouring Sphere. So there you see down here, we've got the new type there. Every 3.7 seconds, gain 1 vamp and deal 10 damage with 100% lifesteal. Triggers 1% faster for each cold and 2% faster for each blind of your opponent. Probably should be on your opponent. Yeah, so buff in that its cooldown is less, and also buff that it has another item type, so it interacts with vamp things. So let's just see. Good thing with vamp, so you can kind of plug it in with any of these vamp items. Possibly blood manipulation, I think, is the biggest synergy here. You can go this skill and you can throw it on. You can build a bunch of these and it can trigger a bunch. So there's a synergy there. Because your healing is being done as damage, this kind of synergizes right in with blood manipulation. So that's really what adding the vamp skill is, which is pretty big buff to the item. Opens up some new builds, which is cool. Nature Chronicles. Trees cooldown is higher, but it gives double the spikes. Okay, so let's see Nature Chronicles. Where is this? Oh, I have vamp on. Shoot. Reset those nature on. Okay, there it is. This I do not like this item, so let's see. Every 3.6 seconds, use 1 regen to gain 1 luck and 2 spikes. So it's triggering less, but giving you double the spikes. I just don't think it's very, I don't know. I'm always hesitant to use a regen to gain luck and spikes. Maybe if you're going for some spike build or, I don't know, spike luck build. Or I feel like it's good for maybe if you get a mage badge on somebody and you're building like some spike build on adventurer, you could toss some of these on, but I don't know. I'm not in love with Nature Chronicles. And it's like a mixed bag, right? More cooldown, so instead of 3 seconds, it's 3.6 seconds. And instead of 1 spike, it's 2 spikes. So better for spike builds. A little bit worse if you were using it to activate things. Prismatic Wand, cooldown going from 6.5 seconds to 6 seconds. I believe this is the second prismatic change, wand change. So it's been buffed two things in 2 patches in a row. Every 6 seconds in one of every type of buff. If you have 20, use 5 of what you have the most of and gain 5 in power. So, I mean, you're getting up to 20 pretty quick here. You can juice that. I do think it's a pretty good item. So, pretty big buff there in reducing that cooldown. Owl Spirit Companion duplication chance going from 20% to 17%. So another nerf to Owl Spirit Companion. Duplication chance goes from 20 to 17. Let's see here. Owl. Yep, items gain a 17% chance to duplicate the buffs they gain. So definitely pretty big nerf. I mean, still really good item. Still really good item, but has been nerfed twice in a row. So I think it was a little too strong. Now they're just dialing it in. Chessboard cooldown going from 1.0 seconds to 0.8 seconds. White Pawn regen going from 1 to 2. Black Pawn mana going from 2 to 3. White Knight trigger speed going from 25 to 35. Black Rook duration going from 2.5 to 3. White King costs down. So more chess buffs here. A whole lot of chess buffs. Check out, I'll link it here. We did a whole chess discussion in the last patch notes review. So really, if you want to deep dive into chess, you can take a look at that video and it'll give you a good primer. Again, just overall, broad across the board buffs to chess. And this is the second patch in the row where that's happened. So will be interesting to see if we get some more chess builds in here. Water Elemental cooldown, another buff to Water Elemental. So let's look at this. It was buffed last patch as well. And the cooldown 3.5 to 3.2. So just trying to make the other subclasses relevant. This doesn't feel that impactful, but it is getting buffed, and it got buffed again. So now it's triggering even faster. So free damage, and maybe you can get your waterbender going with it. A little more appealing now. Herald the Evil Hat, regeneration chance going from 40% to 60%. Let's see, Herald. Okay, self-inflict debuff, 60% chance to gain 1 regen. So this is Battle Mage subclass. Basically, every 5 seconds you're gaining 5 random buffs, and your opponent is gaining 5 random buffs. Whenever you remove a buff from your opponent, the items in the star gain crit, so pretty good for your weapons up there. You want your weapons on top of the hat. Every self-inflicted debuff, you have a 60% chance to gain 1 regen. So you want some way to cleanse debuffs and self-inflict. That synergizes with this hat. And deal 15% of your healing as damage, plus 5% per poison item beneath it. Is that poison item? Let's hover here. What are these? Per dark item, excuse me. Per dark item underneath it. So, interesting buff. Again, buff to the other subclasses for Mage, which have been needed. Probably they have one that's just dominating, so. Ultima Ascension. Add more star tiles. So let's look at this. Ultima. This is another mage subclass, or mage skill. Can be found at round 10. And yeah, considerable more star tiles, so it's just a little more forgiving to place on the board. And it triggers 15% faster for each spell. So, another indirect way to buff spells. Got Ultima Ascension. You want spells on these stars, and they want to buff crafted spells. So, just another indirect way for that to happen. For each star item, you're gaining luck and thorns. And for each cold, you're gaining armor and ice. For each holy item, you're gaining 2 regen. And for each dark item, you're stealing 1 buff. 12 seconds is a long trigger time, but the idea is you load the stars up and you make a trigger faster. So, slight buff there. Just making it more forgiving with the stars. So how do we feel about mage changes here? Let me know in the comments below what do you think of the patch and everything. Now we're down to adventurer, some slight changes. We have another buff to employee uniform. The block is up by 10. Debuffs resisted go from 5 to 6, and trade chance goes up from 30 to 35%. They buffed the trade chances a ton last patch. So here's another buff to the trade chances. Again, I still don't love employee uniform, but it's out there, and they're making it better. This is second buff in a row for it. So hero shield percent damage goes from 10% to 13%. Another buff to hero shield. And then rope duration goes from 4 seconds to 5 seconds. Let's see. Let's look at rope. I don't really understand rope, so. Okay. When the star item activates, the diamond item triggers 10% faster for 5 seconds. So buff there. Whenever your star item activates, the item on the diamond is going to trigger 10% faster for 5 seconds. And I guess you could add a bunch of ropes on something up to 50%. So if you add like 5 ropes, you could put them all together and make something trigger 50% faster for 5 seconds. And it just got buffed, so the duration goes from 4 seconds to 5 seconds, which is pretty considerable. So, Mercury Elemental. Damage as block goes from 20 to 25. Okay, here we go. Gain 25% of the damage dealt as block. So just buff to all the damage you do, whether it's range or melee, any weapon damage. So if you're doing range or you're doing melee damage, you gain 25% of the damage you can deal as block, which is pretty good. Every 5 seconds, regenerate 1 stamina for each distinct weapon, each distinct melee weapon, excuse me. So, big buff to stamina. After you use stamina, inflict 2 poison and 2 poison on yourself. You're getting poisoned, but the idea is you're dealing so much damage that you're gaining block and you're blocking the poison. Very interesting. I've done it a few times. It's kind of big, but I do like it. Okay. Last few notes here. Fedora. Treasure chance goes from 50% to 65%, and the cooldown goes down from 2.5 seconds to 2.3 seconds. Okay, so buff to Fedora, buff to Mercury Elemental, and a nerf to Ukulele. Buff duplication goes from 20% to 15%. So yeah, they're just trying to get the subclasses for adventure in line, true to what they said. Mostly buffs for adventure, but some slight nerfs. And that's all the patch notes. It's everything there. So thanks for watching. Check out my other videos if you haven't, and good luck out there on the ladder.